She was raped at the age of 13 and realized during the assault that she was being attacked by the man known at the time as the East Area Rapist, later dubbed the Golden State Killer. That nightmare was reality for Margaret Wardlow, who joins us now on the story. Margaret, thank you for taking time and just sharing your story with us, and we don't want you to relive it, so that's not the point here, but it's more to just to get to your reaction. So first off, when you heard of an arrest in this case, what was your reaction?
First of all, thank you for having me. My first reaction was just pure elation. I was staying in San Diego, and he was taken in last Thursday night, about 5:30 in Citrus Heights, which is a suburb of Sacramento, where many of these rapes took place. Almost, I think, 50 rapes happened there almost. So I got a phone call from a detective, and he said, well, you know, you don't know me, but I'm a retired sheriff's detective, and I grew up 4 doors down from your family, and I moved out of that house at 1.5 years old. So I don't remember this gentleman, but he said, I just feel a very strong connection with your family, and I want to be the first one to tell you, we have the East Area Rapist in jail right now in Sacramento County.
Could you believe it?
It was amazing. It was so amazing. So I was able to call some of the other ladies that I've been involved with and have been involved in this case. Unfortunately, they've lost family members, which is just huge to me. I mean, I say that's on a completely different level than what happened to me. You know, I was raped at 13. I was the youngest victim, but I can't even imagine having someone in, you know, a loved one taken by this guy and not knowing who did it for 42 years. What suffering.
Yeah. You know, and again, I said at the outset, we don't want you to relive it, but there's some interesting notes here that even at the age of 13, you were very well aware of the case.
Yeah,
right?
Correct. You know, he was a prolific serial rapist that was going into homes with a husband there, you know, and the wife, taking the wife in a separate room and raping her, you know, and so the whole town was abuzz. All of Sacramento knew who the East Area Rapist was. And I really paid attention to reading these newspaper articles. And if there was something on TV, you know, a profiler that wanted to, you know, share with the, you know, the media what they think this guy is about, I was always watching those shows and also continually reading every single thing that I got my hands on as far as the newspapers went. Everything that they said about him, I just absorbed. I remember reading one article 3 times over and thinking to myself, you know, there's nothing more here, but what's making this guy tick? Why is he doing this stuff? And so for me, being victim number 27, I knew a lot about this guy. It was almost like having a dossier on your attacker. So I knew he got off on frightening his victims. I knew he, you know, got his power by having that kind of control over them. So when he asked me, do you want me to kill you? Do you want me to kill your mother? I just replied, I don't care. So
during the attack, did you know it was him, that this is the East Area Rapist?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Initially, at first, when he tied me up, you know, he was insisting I put my hands behind my back. I'm going to tie you up. He had on leather gloves. And I thought it was a school day, so I thought my mom had employed the neighbor to come over and play a trick on me or something. And so I refused the first couple times he asked me to, you know, put my hands together so he could tie them up. And then finally, once I was tied up and he left the room, I looked over at the clock, and I could see it was like 2:30 in the morning, and I knew most likely this was the East Area Rapist.
Wow. Again, you were 13 at the time, but from what I gather, and I want you to articulate it, you were determined to live a life of victory despite what had happened to you. Tell me about that and how you and your family got through it.
Well, like I said, you know, he was a prolific rapist there in Sacramento. Everyone was afraid of him. My opinion on the whole thing was that, you know, I thought, you know, if I just told him that I don't care and I didn't show fear and I was defiant with him, you know, as soon as you answered him, like as soon as, you know, he'd say, well, you know, want me to slit your throat? And I said, I don't care. He'd say, shut up, shut up, shut up. So you really couldn't get too much, you know, word in edgewise. He had a script that he followed. But for me, I always walked away from that attack thinking, you know, I just stood up to him as best I could, even being tied up. And I never had that feeling like, you know, shame or anything like that. I mean, he was a serial rapist. He was affecting all of Sacramento. I wasn't, you know, there was no reason to blame myself for what had happened. And I knew he never came back. He didn't come back to his victims' homes. Sometimes he called, and so we had to have a recorder on the phone, but he never called my house. But as a kid, of course, I'm sitting there waiting for him to call, hoping, you know, hitting that recorder every time the phone rings, picking up the receiver, hoping he calls, because I was going to give him, you know, I was going to give him a tongue lashing. That's just how I was. I was kind of scrappy.
Yeah, no, and I can still see, we can all see that fighting spirit today, and that's why you can smile today. And as you said, you've lived a life of victory since. So we thank you for your time and really your story of victory, despite what happened at the age of 13. Margaret Wardlow, thanks again. Thanks for sharing time.
Thank you, Mike.